Our official U.S. history tells us that we gained independence from the British monarchy as of 1776. The problem with that is that the Freemasons were very instrumental in the supposed independence of the United States and in the government after that, and also in the wars. We will look at some very specific examples in this video. Secret societies such as the Freemasons always have a bloodline representative. Secret societies such as the Freemasons always have a bloodline representative. For example, the United Grand Lodge of England's Grand Master is Prince Edward, Duke of Kent. And this is just their crest with the goat-legged men with hooves, 4 feet, and wings. The United Grand Lodge of England greatly influences all of regular Freemasonry, including the U.S. Grand Lodges. They always move in lockstep. So, if the Freemasons are under the British Crown, and the Freemasons were involved in the independence via the Founding Fathers, then that means we're not exactly independent from the Crown. Officially, we were told that in the 1600s and 1700s, Europeans came to North America looking for religious freedom, economic opportunities, and political liberty. In truth, they were sent as indentured servants to generate wealth for the British Empire and to displace and murder the natives. And a lot of wealth was generated for the British Empire, especially in the South, with the slave labor crops of tobacco, cotton, and indigo, which were exported to Britain and then re-exported by Britain to other countries throughout Europe at a premium. Britain's increased European demand for these crops fueled the expansion of the American plantation colonies, transformed the Atlantic into an English inland sea, and led to the creation of the first British Empire. To highlight this, we can look at one example of one of these guys, Lord Dunmore. He was a Scottish member of peerage and Privy Council of the House of Lords. And a Privy Council is a body of senior politicians serving the UK sovereign. They're current or former members of either the House of Commons or the House of Lords. And this is him. So he was a Scottish peer, a military officer, colonial administrator in the 13 colonies and the Bahamas. He was a royal governor of Virginia, the last one, and then he was governor of New York after that in 1770. As Virginia's governor, Dunmore directed a series of campaigns against the transatlantic or Trans-Appalachian Indians, known as Lord Dunmore's War. So he led the campaign of murdering Native Americans. In 1775, he offered freedom to slaves who fought for the British Crown against the Patriot rebels in Virginia. In 1759, he married Lady Charlotte Stuart, daughter of Alexander Stuart, 6th Earl of Galloway, a relative and probably the grandfather of Jeb Stuart. We're told the 13 colonies were created on the East Coast with their original government controlled by the British, and then later, when the colonists won independence, these colonies became the 13 original states. The official history is that in 1775, colonists fought against the British Army in the Revolutionary War with George Washington as the commander. But George Washington himself was a Freemason who's beholden to the Grand Lodge of England. This led to the Declaration of Independence from Britain, supposedly adopted in 1776, signed on August 2nd of 1776. So why do we celebrate on July 4th? Shaking My Head had a great video yesterday of the actual reason July 4th was chosen, having to do with star alignment, since that's what the pagans love, is their astrology. So the Declaration was written by Thomas Jefferson, who represented Virginia and served as the governor afterwards, and George Washington, the Freemason, then appointed Jefferson as the nation's first Secretary of State, and then Jefferson became president in 1804. So George Washington, first president and Freemason, backed Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence. Let's look at other Freemasons in the United States and the foundation of our government. And I'm going to focus on Virginia because this is where the first English settlement was located, but these Masonic lodges, Grand Lodges, were all over the colonies: New York, Massachusetts, Louisiana, Georgia, and the Carolinas, etc. So Jamestown is right up here where this juts out on the Chesapeake Bay, and Norfolk is right down here. Okay, it was established in 1607 and named after King James I, who himself was a Freemason. Norfolk was settled in 1636, named for Norfolk, England. So Jefferson represented Virginia and was foundationally a Freemasonic colony, Virginia was. The Grand Lodge of Ancient Free and Accepted Masons of Virginia, commonly known as the Grand Lodge of Virginia, claims to be the oldest Masonic Grand Lodge in the United States. And remember, the United Grand Lodge of England greatly influences all of regular Freemasonry, including the U.S. Grand Lodges. Let's look at some of these founding fathers and wealthy antebellum plantation owners that were part of the Grand Lodge of Virginia under England. So first is John Blair. He was a founding father who signed the U.S. Constitution as a delegate from Virginia, and he was appointed to the Supreme Court by George Washington. James Mercer was a lawyer, judge, military officer, plantation owner, and politician of the First Family of Virginia. And First Family of Virginia are defined as elite families in colonial Virginia who were not the early settlers but descended from English colonists and were at the core of Virginia's plantocracy, which is slavery for centuries. John Marshall, founding father, lawyer, Chief Justice, serving as the fourth longest in the history of the Supreme Court, briefly serving as U.S. Secretary of State under John Adams, a representative in the U.S. House from Virginia, therefore making him one of the few Americans to serve in all three branches of the U.S. federal government. And remember, these are all Grand Masters of the Grand Lodge of Virginia. Robert Brooke is this guy right here. He owned a family plantation in Virginia. His grandfather was lieutenant in the Knights of the Golden Horseshoe, which sounds like Jeb Stuart, Knight of the Golden Spur, similar language. Robert and all his brothers became patriots in the Revolutionary War, and the latter two also served in the Virginia General Assembly. And this guy, Robert Brooke, was educated in Scotland at Edinburgh University. All these Grand Masters of the Virginia Lodge. That's founding people, and there were others that were involved in other wars besides the Revolutionary War, such as the War of 1812 and the Civil War even. You have William Terry. He was commander of Stonewall Brigade during the Civil War, and that Stonewall is referring to Stonewall Jackson of the Confederate Army. Related is Jeb Stuart, Confederate General Vampire, we covered from the Rex Deuce House of Stuart, Dragon Court. And he's not listed as a Freemason in the Grand Lodge of Virginia, but he's likely much higher up than that. He was from Virginia, and one of the county seats is named after him. His father was a politician and lawyer from Virginia who served in the War of 1812. His father's name was Archibald. He attended the College of William and Mary, which was a royal charter school established by King William III and Mary II of England. And Archibald was likely the son of Alexander Stuart of Scotland, whose daughter married Lord Dunmore. Then you have James Price, governor of Virginia, of the New Deal. And in fact, in Norfolk, there is an entire district named the Freemason Street Area Historic District after the Norfolk Masonic Lodge, where in this district is where in antebellum Norfolk all the affluent people lived at the time of its foundings in the late 1700s. Civil War officers were housed there in the Almond Archer House and in the Selden House, and there's also the Taylor Whittle House owned by British loyalist and merchant Thomas McKnight. And D.C. is still controlled by the Crown as part of the Crown Corporation. So that's quite a hidden hand, huh? And that's just the Freemasons, which is apparently a relatively lower ranking society as secret societies go, according to Gary Wayne. Rosicrucians are above them, and they, according to Gary Wayne, are the society who controls the media, such as the movies, to promote polytheist history in the agenda, like we always talk about on this channel, which has a huge spiritual significance. And the example that Gary gave was Disney, who was a Rosicrucian, moved up from a Freemason. Thanks for listening.